You've got the touch. You've got the power.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are here with Peter O'Neill, WA's best greyhound race caller. Hopefully, is that self-appointed or am I appointing you that?
No, you're appointed.
Mate, thanks for joining us. Appreciate your time. I know you're a busy man. Chatting to you ahead of the Sandgroper, Western Australia's richest greyhound race. Exciting time in greyhound racing at the moment, you'd say?
Oh, definitely. So we normally have two Group 1 races, the Perth Cup and the Galaxy, which we've only had a few weeks ago, and we go into a $600,000 Sandgroper. So a slot race, you get the chance to buy a slot. They're all taken, the 8 slots, and we get to normally see the best dogs around Australia get chosen in those slots, and they go head-to-head, and $600,000 is big dollars.
Mate, I might get into greyhound racing. Those sorts of numbers start thrown around. I'm actually interested to know how you kind of got into the industry. How'd you start? Know what you're doing now, but how did it start for you?
So as you can see with my size, I wanted to be a jockey when I was a kid. I lived on a farm, rode horses, wanted to be a jockey, and then got too tall, became a race caller, did a phantom call for some staff in a bank. I worked in a bank, did a phantom call, and then started calling harness racing, a little bit of gallops racing, thoroughbreds, terrible thoroughbred caller, and
terrible.
Got married and just tried to, make ends meet for the family. So an opportunity came up with greyhound racing. First 3 months couldn't call them because they just went too quick.
Right.
And just then clicked one day, and then we started to make money out of calling greyhound racing and have loved it ever since.
So how long have you been doing it?
I started calling when I was 18. I'm now in my late 50s or mid-50s. So I've done it for a little while.
So you're experienced. Not old, you're experienced.
Yeah, and I've done it full-time. So I didn't start full-time greyhound calling until 2007, called my first ever Perth Cup. Got very excited, stayed relaxed for the whole day, went down the beach, went for a walk. And, as a professional sportsman, you try and be professional and, stay calm. And then got to the track, started sweating and just fell to pieces. And then I started screaming when I called my first ever Perth Cup. Hopefully you don't play that.
So, no, I don't have anything to play with you today, but I'm sure we can clip some socials up nicely. What did you do? Butcher it?
I didn't butcher it, but I got very excited. So I started screaming at the end of it a little bit. A Victorian greyhound that had won the Melbourne Cup the year before, Betty's Angel, and she got up to score. So I got a little bit excited.
So that was your first Perth Cup. Do you remember your first ever race, like first dog race you did, greyhound race you did?
I'd hate to hear it. So
No. This isn't a gotcha set up, mate. It's like, well, we got it right here. Do you remember it? Like more like the maybe the feeling. I think about my first game, right? I sort of remember moments of the first time you do it. Do you?
I do remember because, as I said, the first 3 months, they were going so quick. So you have a greyhound race over 275 metres now that are going in less than 16 seconds. So our aim is...
Don't have to do much, Pete.
No, our aim is to try and get through the field twice. Like in 15 and a half seconds, you don't get too many chances to make a mistake. So over 500 metres, old Cannington track, I would get to the first corner and then think, where am I, sort of thing, especially when you're calling a harness race that's going for maybe 2.5 minutes. Right. So you had to change your pace and so forth. But I called a dog called Reggie-Mite, a Victorian dog. So I'm very parochial being West Australian. My dad took me to the State of Origin games back in the day. So if you ask me whether I want State of Origin back, yes, the answer is. And I'd see Stephen Michael and Ron Boucher, take on the great Victorian ruckman. And so I had this thing in my head where when West Australians took on the Victorians or Eastern States Greyhounds, it was WA versus the rest. And this WA dog, Reggie-Mite, took on this champion from Victoria and won the WA Derby. So that was one of my first ever feature races. It was back in about 97, 98. And I listen back to it now. It was a terrible call, but it was a highlight for me that a WA dog could beat a Victorian.
Yeah, I look at and I was speaking off air to you, I'm not the world's biggest racing fan, but I'm a casual participant in the industry, I would say. I look at what you do for a profession, calling greyhound racing, and you mentioned it, like how quick it is. What sort of preparation goes into preparing for a call? Because you don't have the time to stuff up. Like you need to know every dog, every race. Like some of these meets are, 10, 12, 14 races?
Yeah, normally 12, so sometimes 14. Hopefully they don't have too many of them, but 12 races. The hardest thing that I find is actually forgetting the names. So I've trained myself now to, as soon as the race is finished, because you have to learn 8 dogs for the next race within 15, 20 minutes, is to be able to forget the names. Now, that's good for a greyhound race caller, but it's actually made it difficult for me when I go out in the streets, and I might see you in the streets and I'll say, hey, mate, because I've forgotten what your name is.
What? So you got to get it into your mind and then out. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so you're memorising 8 dogs.
But you got to get it out.
And then you've got to get them out. So you've got to forget about them. Otherwise, you have a massive headache at the end of the night having all this content in your head. And then what you're going to say, you get tongue-tied. We have trainers now and owners now that put in greyhounds' names that deliberately try to get to the race caller. One of my favourite dogs back in the day when I first started calling, there were a couple of radio guys and they had a dog called Shattered Self. And when you call it, Shattered Self in fast motion, and it did literally that. It came last, so they loved it. But yeah, it didn't have too many starts after that.
Yeah, it's really intriguing. I would never have thought that because each dog, they're wearing the same colours, right?
Yeah.
And it's not like
but the dog could change. So it could
absolutely
could have box 1 and you're remembering it in the red colour in 1 week, and then the next week it could be in the pink in the 8. So they change, from week to week.
So dumb question, how do you actually do that then? Like do you have cards? Do you have...
No, so the race book's in front of you. So you do the form a couple of days before when the fields come out, do the form because you're tipping for TABtouch or for the punters that are betting on the race, which is obviously important for them. And then when the race comes, a few minutes before, you memorise the greyhounds in the best of you can. You've got the book in front of you if you need to glance down. Obviously, if they're going in 15 seconds, you don't have time to glance. And then memorise them and then forget about them at the end of them. Sometimes, if you study them correctly and you're switched on, which I try to be most of the time, then you remember what the dogs' names are. But sometimes you'll call them the wrong name. Something wrong will come out.
They're critical at the end of it.
Very much so.
Of yourself?
So. Yeah, I had a dog, and I won't say it, it's actually on YouTube, but there was a dog called, and you'll take this into account being a very good footballer, and it was Drop Punt and Kamikaze Kid. So these dogs were Kamikaze Kid, Drop Punt, Kamikaze Kid. You're saying it really quickly. I won't go too fast because I don't want to swear on your podcast, but it might have missed up the punt, might have come out the wrong way. But and I didn't think anyone had heard it because it was the last race. But yeah, I got text messages straight after.
That's very
critical. I am critical when I get photo finishes wrong. So I, put the balls on the line to have a go at close finishes, and you try and get them right. And I'm, proud that I've got a pretty good record, but I have got them wrong now and again. And yeah, it can haunt you.
Yeah, so that's an interesting one. So you'll call a winner.
Yep.
You're not that was a close one.
No, have a go. I got a Perth Cup wrong a few years ago. Went up to Geraldton Cup the following day and wrote myself off. Just got smashed and lost my glasses on the Qantas flight coming back, and it was an expensive day.
That's very good. So any kind of favourite calls, favourite races, big dogs, like...
There was a dog back in 2008 called Electra. She came across from Victoria. She was basically had finished her racing career in Victoria. She wasn't that good. She'd lost the will to want to chase, and she had a trainer over here in WA called Keith Harding, who was inducted into our Hall of Fame. He's now passed away. And a few trainers were joking with him 3 months before the Galaxy, which was a Group 1 staying race over 700 metres, that, the dog was finished. And I said, this guy here will win the Galaxy with Electra. And she was this dog that had given up on chasing. She would drop out at the start of a race and then weave her way through the field and get up and win at the last stride. And it would happen regularly against weak dogs here in Western Australia. And then she made it through to the final of the Galaxy. Tim Gossage was on course, big crowd was on course. He pumped them up, the crowd, to say, watch this number 3, Electra. She'll be last early, but she'll weave her way through the field. And so I remember what I'd said to Keith 3 months earlier and his mates, that he would win the Galaxy. And she was hopeless. She had no chance of winning. And she's weaved her way through. A Victorian, Tasmanian dog, I think, were the 2 favourites. They were in front coming around the home corner, and then the crowd has just lit up because they're watching her, and she's weaved through and she's got up to score. And that was a great victory. She was a very good dog. Electra. There was another. I love staying races because a lot of the staying races, they come from behind.
Yeah. Bit more time.
Yeah, more time for me to call as well, which is always beneficial.
Yeah.
And we had a champion called Miata. So back in, I'm guessing that probably mid 210s, 212, around that time.
Yes.
She won 2 Galaxy finals, and she in her first 3 starts, she broke the track record. Now, Greyhounds WA put up $5,000 if she'd break the track record at her second start, and they'd give it to cerebral palsy, and she broke the track record. And they said, we'll double it if she can do it the following week. So she came out and did it 3 weeks in a row. So they lost $15,000, went to a good cause.
Correct.
Yeah, but and she went on to become a superstar. At the time, she'd won over $750,000 when she retired. She was the highest stake earning greyhound, and she went around Australia with Paul Stewart, her trainer, and she had a massive following. She actually had such a big following that Black Caviar, who had won 25 races straight at the time in the thoroughbreds, Peter Moody, her trainer, asked Paul when he was in Melbourne whether he could have a photo with Black Caviar. So there's this famous photo of Black Caviar with this dog, Miata, over in Victoria, and that obviously is pride of place at the RAWA offices. You can see it if you walk in there.
That's brilliant, the horse and the dog.
Yeah.
42 from 51 I got here, Miata.
Yeah. She was,
including 5 Group 1s.
She was a freak. Yeah.
Absolute gun.
Yeah.
Sandgroper, as we spoke about, mate. What did you think about the name Sandgroper? First came out.
Well, it's interesting because of the fact that we always call our West Australians, it
sounds like you would have liked it.
Yeah, I did. The West Australian football teams. You'd appreciate that. Now, you call yourself a West Australian?
No, I'm Victorian.
Yeah. So.
I live in Western Australia. I'm a Victorian.
Did you ever watch the State of Origin game?
Yeah, definitely. I mean,
Western Australia would win most of them?
Yeah, there we go. See, don't worry. I know the Western Australian way of doing things. I love Western Australia. In opposed to West Australians with Victorians like West Australians. West Australians like Victoria. Hey, this is a better place to live than Victoria, but I'll always be a Victorian.
I love Melbourne. I love Melbourne.
Yeah, but
cafe strips.
Yeah, but if you went and lived there, you wouldn't call yourself a Victorian. You're always
West
So you got to respect the fact of it.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, no, 100%. But very parochial West Australians. So love it when WA takes on Victoria. The Mexicans, as they call them, if you live in New South Wales. But yeah, any state that any dog that comes across from the eastern states, it's very good. Our breeding has improved, and we've seen in the Sandgroper the last 2 years. So Crumble Manelli won the first ever Sandgroper. It was trained by David Hobby, who just loves money, and he happens to win the first ever Sandgroper, which I think was worth $500,000 the first year. And then last year he had a dog called Sunset Frazier, who was about 20-1 with the bookmakers with TABtouch, and given no chance. So I've stood up at a function a couple of days before, and I said, I think Sunset Frazier leads. I think the rest of the field get in trouble. He'll be out by so far that he'll go on and win the race. And everyone's going, $20. You're like, you've got to be kidding me. Like, it's got no chance, this dog. So guess what happens? It leads. The field almost falls over, except for one Victorian who comes through the pack, and actually Hector Fawley, and gets up and defeats Sunset Frazier.
You were calling this race.
I'm calling the race, yeah. So
in the back of your mind on this is good.
This is good. I could become a star here, but yeah, no, it didn't happen.
So how is the field set for this year? Like we're just doing this at the back end of March, so we're not too far away from it.
Yeah, so about 30 days out at the moment from the Sandgroper. So 3 greyhounds have been locked away. Tim Zoo, who's named by a few AFL footballers and trained by Jason Thompson, who's the best trainer in Australia, is now going to be representing TABtouch. So TABtouch gets in early to try and get the best possible. Now, Tim Zoo's won a couple of Group 1 races, is a superstar.
How's he fit in around the boxing?
I'm not sure. The greyhounds aren't allowed to fight, so hoping he doesn't fight on the night. But there's Tim Zoo that's been locked away. Miss Envy's also been locked away. She's probably our best WA chaser at the moment. And there's one other greyhound that escapes me at the moment, Kenya All Class. So there's 3 locked away. So there's still 5 slots. One other one, the greyhound Deadly Avenger, who won the Perth Cup, has just been locked away by Ladbroke. So
it's a bit of a who's who, really.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, so there's 8 slots, and a couple of the big bookmaking companies have slots because obviously the importance for their promotion, bringing their customers across, and also their customers that are in WA, being able to lock them away. So it's a big thing for TABtouch to be able to be competitive. They ran 2nd last year, or 3rd last year, and they'll be hoping to go one better this year.
Do you get nervous before a big call? Like, that's a big call, right?
Yeah, I used to. As I said, if you go back and listen to the 2007 Perth Cup, I got nervous, went to absolute pieces. But not as much so now. I try and get up. A guy called Marty Young, who's on Tab Radio on Drive, he gave me some advice early on, because I would have a big difference between calling a maiden, which is the first ever win for a greyhound, to the Group 1s. And you could notice the difference in my calls. And he said, it's as important for a person that wins a maiden with their greyhound as it is for some of them to win a Group 1, because that'll be the only race they win or so forth. So now I try and get as much excitement in winning a maiden as I do with a Group 1. Obviously, there is another level, as you would know, playing in an AFL Grand Final, that it is another level up. But I don't get as nervous as I used to.
Do you get to speak to any other callers across other sports? You mentioned Tim Gossage, who's a great play-by-play with SEN WA. We've just done a show out the front with Adam Papalia. You've just missed him on the way out. He's a brilliant caller. I work with him on 6PR and Fox Footy. Do you get to mix with other callers and to speak about, or is it just a completely different game?
We do. No, we do. So we have quite a few that come across our landscape, and the race callers, so thoroughbred race callers and greyhound callers, but thoroughbred race callers in Australia compared to the rest of the world are elite. So you have Matt Hill in Victoria, Darren McCauley here in Western Australia. They're names that are well known.
Yeah.
We had a kid recently who went to Victoria, and he actually got to meet his hero, who was Matt Hill, who's the caller in Flemington Caulfield. And Matt asked him a couple of questions, and this kid was maybe 9, and said to him, I'm going to ask you some questions of who the callers are at these tracks. He goes, Cannington. He goes, Peter O'Neill. And that just like dumbfounded me that this young kid lives in Victoria and he knows who the caller at Cannington is.
So he's got a future.
Yeah, he'll have a job anytime he wants.
Mate, best of luck calling the Sandgroper. I'm looking forward to it. I'm invested now. So
You coming out?
Cannington?
Yeah.
I'd be more of a chance in Mandurah.
Really?
I've got a house in Mandurah. I love Mandurah, and I get to the dogs there just a little bit. I've never been to Cannington.
Would you like to call? Have you ever wanted to be a commentator?
I mean, I do special comments, which is nothing like play by play. I understand that. But the one reason is the preparation you blokes put in compared to me, runs around, shooting his mouth, opinions left, right and centre. Not a great deal of preparation.
It'd be a good podcast. You have a video, so just have a video of the Perth Cup, put the sand down and you call it.
Okay. I need to know I need to know
Greyhounds, we'll give you the names. Yeah.
Is this a challenge?
Yeah, definitely.
All right, let's finish this little chat on that. I will take you up on that challenge, but you have to play a game of football. You can. I'll set something aside for you. You can do special comments in AFL. I reckon you could do that.
I could.
It feels like you're going to absolutely dominate that, though.
I'd
Big
love
Sandgroper fan.
I'd love it. I actually played one game of football with Dean Kemp from the West Coast Eagles when he was playing in Kalgoorlie.
Did you play with him or against?
No, with him. And it was wet, cold. He got 35 possessions and he didn't have a speck of dirt on him when he came off the field, and I was covered in mud. I wasn't much good.
Dishing it out to
It wasn't much good.
Thanks, Peter, for your time today, mate. Been good chat. And like I said, I'm invested now. I'll come to Cannington and I'll call a dog race as well.
Good on you. Look forward to it.
Thanks, mate.
You've got the touch.
Imagine what you could be buying instead. For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.